From a steel box crawling through World War I trenches to the machine that redefined the modern battlefield, these are every tank Germany ever made. The A7V was Germany's first attempt at a tank, introduced near the end of World War I. It was a massive, box-like steel fortress, crewed by at least 18 men and armed with a 57mm cannon. While it offered protection, it was unstable, slow, and struggled to cross trenches compared to its British rivals. Only 20 were built, and while they had little impact on the war, they marked the beginning of German armored warfare. The Panzer I was developed in secret during the interwar period as a training vehicle to rebuild Germany's armored forces. It was small, lightly armored, and armed only with 2 machine guns, making it useless against other tanks. However, it was fast and reliable, allowing German crews to develop the tactics of the Blitzkrieg. It served in combat in Spain and Poland simply because better tanks were not yet available in numbers. The Panzer II was designed as a stopgap measure while heavier tanks were being developed. It featured a 20mm autocannon and improved speed, making it an effective scout and light support vehicle. It formed the backbone of the Panzer divisions during the invasions of Poland and France. Although its thin armor quickly made it obsolete in direct combat, its chassis was successful enough to be used for self-propelled guns throughout the war. The Neubaufahrzeug was a multi-turreted heavy tank designed during the 1930s as a land battleship. It featured a main turret with 2 guns and secondary machine gun turrets intended to engage multiple targets at once. In reality, it was slow, thinly armored, and mechanically complex, with only 5 ever built. Despite being a combat failure, it was a propaganda masterpiece, deployed to Norway specifically to trick the Allies into believing Germany possessed a massive fleet of heavy supertanks. The Panzer III was designed to be Germany's primary battle tank, intended to fight other tanks. It introduced a revolutionary 3-man turret layout that allowed the commander to focus on tactics rather than loading the gun. While it was excellent in the early war, its turret ring was too small to accept significantly larger guns needed to fight Soviet armor. It eventually transitioned into a support role, proving that crew efficiency was just as important as armor thickness. The Panzer IV was the true workhorse of the German army and the only German tank to remain in production for the entire Second World War. Originally designed as a support tank with a short-barreled gun, it was upgraded with a long 75mm cannon to become a tank killer. It was reliable, adaptable, and served on every front. While it lacked the heavy armor of later Cats, the Panzer IV was the backbone that held the German lines together. The Tiger I is perhaps the most famous tank in history, built to dominate the battlefield through heavy armor and firepower. Armed with the dreaded 88mm gun, it could destroy Allied tanks from extreme distances while shrugging off return fire. However, it was over-engineered, expensive, and mechanically fragile, often breaking down before reaching the battle. Despite its low production numbers, it created a psychological Tiger terror among Allied crews that outlasted the tank itself. The Panther was Germany's direct response to the Soviet T-34, incorporating sloped armor and wide tracks for the first time. It featured a high-velocity 75mm gun that had better penetration than even the Tiger's weapon. On paper, it was the best balance of speed, firepower, and armor of the war. In reality, it was rushed into service, suffering from chronic engine fires and final drive failures. But it set the template for the modern main battle tank. The Tiger II, also known as the King Tiger, was the pinnacle of German heavy tank engineering. It combined the thick armor of the Tiger I with the sloped design of the Panther and an even more powerful long 88mm gun. It was virtually impenetrable from the front. However, it was massively heavy, underpowered, and consumed fuel that Germany did not have. It was a formidable defensive bunker, but a logistical nightmare that could not stop the Allied advance. The Leopard 1 marked Germany's return to tank production after the war, designed for a new NATO doctrine. Engineers believed that modern heat rounds made heavy armor useless, so they prioritized speed and firepower, giving the Leopard 1 very thin armor but excellent mobility. It carried the British 105mm gun and advanced optics. It became a huge export success, serving as the standard European tank for decades. The Leopard 2 was developed to counter a new generation of Soviet tanks, correcting the lack of protection of its predecessor. It introduced advanced composite armor and the devastating 120mm smoothbore gun. It balances firepower, mobility, and protection better than almost any other tank in the world. Widely considered the benchmark for modern main battle tanks, the Leopard 2 remains the iron fist of the German army and many NATO allies today. But tanks weren't Germany's final answer. These were the machines designed for one job only: to hunt and destroy enemy tanks. The Panzerjäger 1 was Germany's first attempt at creating a self-propelled anti-tank gun. Realizing the Panzer 1 was useless as a battle tank, engineers removed the turret and mounted a Czech 47mm gun on top. It was a hasty improvisation with thin armor and an open crew compartment, leaving the gunners exposed. Despite its vulnerability, it provided valuable mobile firepower during the invasion of France and North Africa, proving that even an obsolete chassis could be lethal if armed correctly. The Marder 1 was born from the vast stocks of captured French equipment after the fall of France. The Germans took the chassis of the French Lorraine tractor and mounted a powerful 75mm anti-tank gun on it. It was a stopgap solution, featuring a high silhouette and very little protection for the crew. However, it allowed the Wehrmacht to quickly mechanize its anti-tank units, turning captured logistical vehicles into dangerous frontline weapons on the Eastern Front. The Marder 2 was developed to keep the obsolete Panzer II chassis useful in modern combat. By mounting a 75mm cannon, either a German PK-40 or a captured Soviet field gun, it gave Panzer divisions a mobile tank killer capable of destroying Soviet T-34s. Like its predecessor, it was tall and open-topped, making it vulnerable to artillery and infantry. Yet it was reliable and mobile, serving as a critical defensive asset during the intense armored clashes in Russia. The Marder 3 was the most numerous of the Marder family, built on the reliable Czech Panzer 38T chassis. It combined a proven, mechanically robust drivetrain with potent German or captured Soviet guns. While it still suffered from a lack of overhead protection, its firepower and reliability made it a favorite among crews. It served on all fronts until the end of the war, proving that a light chassis with a big gun was a cost-effective way to fight a defensive war. The Nashorn, originally known as the Hornice, was designed to destroy enemy tanks from extreme ranges. It mounted the deadly long-barreled 88mm gun, the same used on the Tiger II, on a hybrid Panzer III and IV chassis. It had virtually no armor protection, earning it the nickname Glass Cannon. However, its ability to knock out Allied tanks from over 2 kilometers away made it a terrifying sniper on the open steppes of the Eastern Front. The Elephant, also known as the Ferdinand, was a heavy tank destroyer built on the rejected Porsche Tiger chassis. It featured massive frontal armor and a powerful 88mm gun, driven by a complex petrol-electric engine system. While impenetrable from the front, it was mechanically unreliable, slow, and initially lacked a machine gun for defense against infantry. It was a defensive fortress at the Battle of Kursk, but logistical issues and mechanical failures resulted in more losses than enemy fire. The Jagdpanzer IV was the realization of General Guderian's vision for a low-profile tank destroyer. Built on the Panzer IV chassis, it removed the turret in favor of a well-sloped casemate structure. It was extremely hard to spot in an ambush and carried a lethal 75mm gun. However, the heavy armor and long gun made it nose-heavy, straining the front suspension and earning it the nickname Guderian's Duck. Despite this, it was one of the most effective defensive vehicles of the late war. The Jagdpanther is widely considered one of the best tank destroyers of World War II. It combined the excellent mobility and sloped armor of the Panther chassis with the devastating long 88mm gun. It was fast, well protected, and capable of destroying any Allied tank in existence. Its only real weakness was that it was complex and expensive to build. Too few were produced to change the outcome of the war, but individually, it was a masterpiece of engineering. The Jagdtiger was the heaviest armored fighting vehicle to see service in the war, a manifestation of Hitler's obsession with size. Built on the Tiger II chassis, It carried a massive 128mm gun capable of tearing through buildings and tanks alike. However, it was a logistical disaster. It was too heavy for most bridges, guzzled fuel, and broke down constantly. For every Allied tank it destroyed, many more Jagdtigers were abandoned by their crews due to mechanical failure or lack of fuel. The Hetzer, officially the Jagdpanzer 38T, was the ultimate lesson in efficiency. It took the old but reliable Czech 38T chassis and widened it to fit a sloping armor box and a 75mm gun. It was small, cheap, and easy to hide. While the interior was cramped and the commander had poor visibility, the Hetzer could be mass-produced when German industry was crumbling. It proved that a small, numerous, and hard-to-hit tank destroyer was often more valuable than a massive, expensive giant. In total, Germany built surprisingly few tanks, but behind each one was an obsession with engineering, efficiency, and control. What many people don't realize is that beyond these production vehicles, Germany experimented relentlessly. It's estimated that more than 30 real tank prototypes were designed and documented, most of them never meant to reach mass production. If you want to see a full video covering every German tank prototype ever built, let me know in the comments. If enough of you ask for it, we'll make it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.